السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. نفتتح اليوم معكم اليوم الثاني والأخير من مؤتمر الهندسة الخضراء، الجلسة الرابعة، قطاع الاتصالات والمواصلات. أما الآن فمع المتحدث مالكوم سميث، فليتفضل.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. And I will say all protocols observed. During my time when I spent in my international work, most of it concerned about country entries, so where Shell, for example, that I worked for, looking at the risks the company may face when entering a new country, or even when the company exits a country. So my focus was mainly about people. The people side of risk, although there was strategic risk that we have to look at, and specifically when we talk about green engineering, the people behind the engineering projects or investments that we need to make. We all know engineering has to do mainly with things, but what about the people behind it? Now, I was fortunate during my work experience to travel about 27 countries out of the 54 countries in Africa, and believe me, I've seen it all when it comes to pollution, really not caring for the environment. But one city really took me by surprise, and that was Kigali. I had the opportunity to spend twice during my business trip in Kigali. And as you can see, it is a community effort, what they call Umuganda. Now, Umuganda is an effort by the community. Every last Saturday of the month, they get together for at least 3 to 4 hours and looking after the environment. And what to note about this is that the president himself, Paul Kagame, as you know there, he's taking the lead in taking care of the environment. Needless to say, when you really mobilize a whole community to do the things that you would like to achieve in your environment, that is the result. Now, Uganda, Kenya, and these neighboring countries, they would also like to claim this name of being the cleanest city or the greenest city in Africa. So they have really, through Umuganda, have created a brand of being the cleanest and the greenest city as part of their reputation. And the neighboring countries, of course, want to emulate. I don't know why it started moving. So, the lesson we've learned here, if you want to move fast, in other words, getting things done, you can do it alone. But that will not give you the result on the long end. To be sustainable, you need to really have the people behind you. Another project that I recall was when Shell tried to enter South Africa on a shale gas project. And the government, of course, Shell had to get a license to operate through the government. And the government, of course, looking at new renewable energies, they're looking at, of course, unemployment, to increase employment, and the promise they make to the people that their farms would not be impacted by this particular shale gas or fracking process. The same Shell then decided they're going to call this project and trying to convince the communities that it's about engineering earth development through integrity. And believe me, that value proposition that they tried to sell amongst the community really didn't work. Because the community's response was this. Now, what Shell forgot was to obtain a license to operate, yes, is the conversation with government, but to obtain the freedom to operate is getting the people behind them. They have had no freedom to operate, and the people did not believe in that value proposition, because what they perceive as value, as we know, value is in the eye of the beholder. What they perceive as value is that rugged country of theirs, a semi-desert area, that they really farm with sheep. That's their value. And they would rather live in their dusty roads than getting this proposition of a new life. And Shell had to then exit, and now what is Shell doing? They're looking at renewable energy, bringing wind turbines instead. But if they had taken a step back and started off with the community whilst running with all stakeholders that has an interest in this project, and not only with government, they wouldn't have had this kind of setback. Another similar project, but in a different tone, was the Queen's project. Now, as you know, New York, a large city, drainage systems and so forth, and the government decided they're going to introduce in most of the boroughs, they're going to introduce this rain garden concept. Again, lack of community involvement. But a promise was made how the environment will improve for the communities. Pollution, sewage systems that will be better operated. The suppliers they choose created these raining gardens without even consent or input from communities. And this is the typical response they receive. I don't know why I jumped twice. So the response was completely negative. Inferior design, because remember that amongst the community are also engineers, and they are in the front face, they're in the cold face. Why not gather their input? They did not, that supplier that they use. So a key stakeholder that was out of the loop, and so forth. Mindsets of, if we've been doing this for the last 70 years, why? What would this bring any change? So how do you really change a community to understand the project that you would like to get off the ground? What is also key to know that with both principles, it is clear that community or stakeholder involvement must be, and I say again, must be part of the whole design, or really, let's call it the initial concept, right through until the implementation and the maintenance and right through of your project. And it's in both principles. As you can see, it's highlighted there, active engagement. Also, when we think global, but act local, there's nothing as good as the people being in the front face. The local community or local stakeholders got better input to help you achieve your objectives in terms of green projects. Now, how do we go about this? Simple steps. Of course, from the onset, whilst you conduct your risk assessment or your study to gain insights about a community, gain insights about what really makes society tick, gain insights of who the stakeholders are, what are the interests of the stakeholders, who are the key stakeholders, gain interest of really how are we going to make this happen? What are the real needs? What are the true value that we can contribute to society or the environment? Now, there is more pull, and then we have to push, again, by educating. But that education of educating whoever the stakeholders are must also be education process for the investment or the project team. So it's a two-way stream in terms of education. Then, when we have done that, at least then we can move over to the consultative process. Because there's now true involvement of what would work for you what is best for the environment, what is best for the society, and that consultative process will unfold into stronger collaboration. In other words, empowerment where the community, amongst the public, rather start driving this particular project that you have in mind. And it's really a simple process of really moving forward. Now, a simple way to really, because all stakeholders are not really needing to put that much effort. So hence your stakeholder map or your stakeholder analysis would give you a better idea of really where to focus. Which or who key stakeholders needs either to be managed closely, the stakeholders that you just need to inform or just keep updated and appraised, or are there the stakeholders like your activists that really you need to have close by to help them understand where this project is leading so that they can help the communities or whoever help understand where this project is leading in terms of green, whatever that particular project may be. And there's a range of, etc. There's a range of stakeholders that we need to plot in your map and then drive your stakeholder management accordingly. We jumped one step. I've seen from the triple bottom line, green engineering, we know the triple bottom line where we have health, that we conclude with social. So that includes everything from the environment right down to the economic sphere. A good example to look at how the triple bottom line really plays itself out and really adding value to the communities, business, the regulator, everyone around it, as well as environment. If we look at the green roof project in Switzerland, back in the late 90s, early 2002, 2003, and now that is successful, it really started off looking at how can you use green roofing to lower costs or energy consumption. But it worked out so well that eventually it became a regulatory a policy, in other words. So instead of, in the beginning, start off with a policy, they really took all stakeholders on board, from supplier right on to the community, right on to community leaders, and it evolved into economics. So the suppliers that now really construct these kind of roofs have their piece of the pie. The communities that lives under this green roof concept, biodiversity has now been included. So when we look at this triple bottom line, now you can start off with a single value proposition that can really build out into a real full triple bottom line value proposition that the community and whoever the stakeholders are can buy into because it means something. That value add means something to the environment and the rest that lives within it. So the key story here is the vision that you or your team or the investment group has should be and must be to embrace not only the world, but all stakeholders, key stakeholders involved to move it forward. The question being, when we look at the transport industry that is evolving within Qatar, unless the community is with us on this journey, we will have that trains running, probably with the ones that see it a necessity, but the roads will still be congested by everyone in a car driving and not using the public transport that is meant to reduce the amount of cars on the road. Of course, what goes to when cars are on the road? We know what the environmental impact of that should be or would be, the economics around all of that. So the mindset of it's for the less fortunate ones to use public transport than saying, you know what, it's not just for the less fortunate. If I jump into that train, it reduces X, Y, Z, but it also benefits me in terms of economics. So there's a whole mindset that we have to get the community on board, everyone, to really to take the value out of the new infrastructure that's ahead of us. So that brings the end of my conversation. It is purely that all projects, from the conception, the feasibility phase of that project, whatever that green-related project is, unless you really get all the stakeholders involved and embrace and take him on this journey, you would either have a short-lived success, or you can have a long, sustainable success for that particular project and the outcomes thereof. So thank you for listening. Any questions?